On today's show, the Cavs have the best record in the NBA, but could they maybe make an upgrade or two in the trade market? We're going to bring in Greg Swartz from Bleacher Report to talk about that. Plus, is Donovan Mitchell becoming underrated? All that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Be sure to drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. If you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA. Greg Swartz from Bleacher Report joining me today. We're talking about guys that the Cavs could trade for. I know when you hear the word trade, you think, oh, they're going to want to trade Jared Allen. They're going to want to do this. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about who the Cavs could move, more so who they could bring in. And for the most part, we're going to talk about players that could improve the team on the margins. I certainly think that with the start they're off to, the best record in the NBA through 27 games, 23-4, right? Like, they don't need to make upgrades to the core, but can they improve the role players? That's really what the state of this conversation is going to talk about with Greg Swartz. He's written for Bleacher Report for a really long time, knows the Cavs really well, knows the league really well. So without anything else from me, here's my conversation with Greg Swartz. And here he is, Greg Swartz of Bleacher Report, as promised. Greg, one of the things that you have worked on recently is you have looked all across the league at all 30 teams and said, hey, you could trade for somebody, or maybe in some cases you could trade somebody away and get something back. Of those 30 teams are the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, I think we would probably agree they don't need to make major moves, sitting at 23-4 as we record this, the best record in basketball. I don't know that things really need to be shaken up, but there is always room to improve as a basketball team. There's always, I think, some advantages to maybe be gained on the margins. So you put out for Bleacher Report basically 3 candidates that every team should consider trading for. You put down 3 for the Cavs, just the same way you put down 3 for every other team. I want to go through the 3 that you put down, and then I have a couple others that you didn't list, and I am curious if they crossed your mind because they did pop up on the list elsewhere. So we'll talk about that too. But I want to start with Larry Nance Jr. because he's a name that just about every Cavs fan knows. They know who Larry Nance Jr. is, former member of the team. His dad has his number hanging in the rafters at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Currently on the Atlanta Hawks, really not playing much basketball for the Atlanta Hawks, but he is on the roster. I do think that it makes a lot of sense for the Cavs to potentially make a trade for a third big. What led you to putting him on this list as a potential fit in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have the ties to the area. He's a guy that still lives here in the off season, so I think he'd be very happy, making that move from Atlanta to Cleveland. And right now, he's not even inside the Hawks rotation. I mean, they have Clint Capella as their starting center, Onyeka Okongwu is their backup center, a guy that they've invested in. They've given him a 4-year extension that's going to kick in next year. And Larry's a guy that he's only played about 10 games this year. He's too good of a player to not be in a team's rotation. And I just wonder how happy he's going to be there, especially he's a guy in a contract year, going to be a free agent this summer. He's on an expiring $11 million deal. It's a contract that's pretty easy to trade for. And I just think if you look at, and the Cavs roster doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, but, heaven forbid Jared Allen has to miss time or Evan Mobley has to miss time. They're a little thin at the center position. And, Tristan Thompson's a guy that, he's at this point, he's playing that Udonis Haslem role. I don't think he's a guy that you want to step in and play 20 minutes a night. Unless we got a time machine that takes us back to 2015. I don't think that's what we want from Tristan. So Larry's a guy that I think he's a really good backup center. Obviously he'd be thrilled to play here. He hasn't played much this year, but even if you go over the last 2 years, he shoot about 46% from 3 over a span of 70 games. I mean, that's a lot. This is a guy who we really wanted him to shoot threes when he was here. It wasn't a big part of his game, and we know what he can bring defensively. He's still got that bounce. He can still rise up and throw down some dunks. So I think if you're looking at a backup center, just an insurance policy, and a guy that you don't have to mess with the core to trade for, I think Larry Nance would be an ideal backup center for this team.
Right. I do think one of the things that makes him really intriguing, because I think part of the conversation is, okay, well, if he's the third big, how many minutes in the rotation are there for him? And I think that he's more than just an insurance policy for primarily Jarrett Allen, because I actually think the fit with him and Evan Mobley on the floor together could be really good. That could be a way where Evan can play with another big and actually play center too. But it's also, I think, kind of, Greg, an insurance policy for Dean Wade, because Dean is somebody who, when the Cavs have not been whole, when they've had one of Allen or Mobley out, as we saw last week, we've seen Dean Wade play some backup 5 minutes. I think it's kind of a break glass in case of emergency thing. I think you have to be very strategic about when it can be done. But I do think that maybe having Larry Nance in that role could be something that is interesting in the very least. But I do wonder ultimately what things have to look like for him to get a consistent role in Cleveland if he is here, provided that, Jarrett Allen is healthy and Evan Mobley is healthy and still playing.
Yeah, I think George Niang is a guy that might see his minutes cut a little bit if Larry was here. But, you said Dean Wade. Dean Wade's had a lot of injury issues the last couple of years. So it's kind of, he's a guy that, you plug Larry in, he can play alongside Jarrett. He can play alongside Evan. He has that floor spacing ability. I remember asking Larry the first time he was here, like, what is your ideal position? Because he's kind of so versatile. And he said, my favorite position is on the floor. Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if he's a center or a power forward. He's probably played a little bit more center the last couple of years of his career. But, he's a guy, he's just versatile. He's a smart player. He's a good passer. He's a good shooter. He's a great teammate. Everybody loved him when he was here. I just think it's a no-brainer. And he'd obviously be thrilled, I think, to, sitting on the bench for the Atlanta Hawks every night to come back to Cleveland, where, like I said, he lives in the offseason still to this day.
Right. Even if the role isn't that much bigger, I do think that there would be, and I don't know Larry, I wasn't here when Larry was here, so I don't have a relationship with him, but I would imagine that as somebody who still lives in this area, who is, from everything I know, always going to hold the Cavalier organization in very high regard, I would think that even if the role doesn't change a whole ton, even if it just changes a little bit, he'd be a little bit happier in this situation in Cleveland on a really good team, the best team in basketball right now in terms of record, than he is in Atlanta with the Hawks. So next on your list, you had Cory Kispert, forward with the Wizards. Cavs have seen him a couple times in, I believe, the first Cavs-Wizards game, left because of an ankle injury, but he is somebody that is known across the league as a really, really, really good three-point shooter, which really does fit in with who the Cavs are, being one of the best three-point shooting teams in basketball on the year. He's having a little bit of a down year. He's only shooting 41.3% from beyond the arc. So it's really, really crushing stuff from him. But what about Kispert's game do you think would make him fit in so well here?
Yeah, like you say, if you look at the raw numbers this year, they're not good. 31% from three for a guy that is primarily known for his three-point shooting. But I try not to judge guys too much when they're just on god-awful teams. If you look at, no one on that Wizards team is putting up good numbers. It's not like anybody. Kyle Kuzma, even he's a guy that's averaging 15 points, and he's not shooting well this year. So I think if you take a guy like Kispert, you take him out of a terrible situation. They don't have a true point guard. They have Jordan Poole has been running point guard for them a lot this year. And you put him on a team like the Cavs that, okay, we shoot a lot of threes. We emphasize ball movement and cutting and spacing. And we put you with this great head coach. I think his numbers would look a little bit better in Cleveland. I just have a feeling. A guy's 6'7". He's still young. He's only 25 years old. He can grow. He signed an extension last offseason, and I think it's an extension that's going to age really well. It kicks in next year. It's 4 years, $54 million. You're looking at a contract that's basically going to start at the mid-level exception next year, and it's for 4 years. And I think if you plug him into the Cavs system, you're going to see numbers that you saw at least the last couple years from him when he was shooting 42% from three, 38% from three, averaging between 11 and 13 points per game. And, just going to be that ideal floor spacer for you, especially, if you lose Karis LeVert this offseason to free agency, if you lose Dean Wade to injuries like we've talked about, Max Strus, obviously, with his injury this year, if you're just looking for a little bit more depth on the wing and you're looking for a guy who's still young, has upside, is on a good contract. And like I said, if you look at the raw numbers right now, they're not great. 10 points, 31% from three. I think they look a lot better in Cleveland. So, with the Wizards, they parted with Denny Avdia. They have a new head coach. They have a new front office. I just think if that's a guy that you could get at a low price, you plug him into Kenny Atkinson's system, I think you have a very good investment for the next 4 years.
I think if he's out there, and the Cavs have not been a team that's been short on shooting so far this year. Obviously, they've been one of the best three-point shooting teams in basketball in terms of percentage. But think of what having him alongside Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, maybe Sam Merrill can be on the floor with him too, what that could do in terms of just spacing for everybody. Like the Cavs are a team right now that I think can get pretty creative with some of their lineups in terms of creating space and just the flexibility that they have to operate in different ways offensively. And I do think that a pickup like Kispert would be something that could accentuate that even just a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, I think he's tailor-made for a system like the Cavs play in. And I think if you just take him off that bad Wizards team, you plug him into this rotation, even as a guy off the bench, if he's playing 15, 20 minutes, he's going to be a 40% three-point shooter, and he's just going to come in and light it up. And I think that's just on that contract. Like I said, for a Cavs team that's getting more and more expensive, you got a good rotation player at basically the mid-level exception for the next 4 years. I think that contract's going to age really well.
So there was something that you said about Kispert that I want you to remember when we get to one of the guys that I have to bring up. But we've got one more guy from Greg, and then I've got two suggestions or two questions about players that he didn't include. We're going to get to all of that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace. Game Time should be your go-to ticket marketplace as well. It's a really big weekend in sports as we've got college football playoffs. And if you want to get in the door, whether it's in Columbus, maybe you're in Austin, Texas, maybe you're in South Bend, I don't know. You could be maybe in Happy Valley wanting to go to one of those games. If you want to get in the door, the best way to get in the door is going to be using the Game Time app. They've got great deals. They've got a lot of cool features that I really like that I wouldn't trade for anything. I want to know what I'm going to be paying at the end when I'm going through the process. Game Time allows me to toggle on that all-in pricing feature so I know exactly what it's going to be with taxes and fees. I don't want to be surprised at the very end. Game Time takes that guesswork out of the ticket buying experience. Also, the other thing Game Time does to take the guesswork out of the ticket buying experience, they'll show you what your view is going to look like. So if you want to sit in a certain section because you know what the view of midfield, if you're going to a football game this weekend, is going to look like, they'll do that. Or if you're sitting in a new section and you have no idea what your view is going to look like, Game Time will show you. Just go inside there and you can see exactly what your view is going to be. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a service that can help you find subscriptions that you maybe have forgot about. We all subscribe to things, right? There are a number of subscription services that I use. I like to think I'm on top of my stuff, but you might not be. Rocket Money, what they do is they help you track down the subscriptions you're not using, and it's a money saver is what Rocket Money is. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app, helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. That's what we all want to do. It brings everything together right in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and it's saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's incredible. saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON. Again, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. So we've talked a little bit about Larry Nance, Greg. We've talked a little bit about Cory Kispert. Third guy you have, Cody Martin from the Charlotte Hornets. What do you think would make Cody Martin a good fit in Cleveland?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of Cavs fans that just went, who? Like, is that the guy that used to play for the Heat? No, this is his brother. Yeah, we're not getting Caleb Martin. This is Cody Martin. If you haven't heard of him, that's because he plays for the Charlotte Hornets, who have not been relevant in many years. But this is a guy, if you're looking at 3-and-D role players, I think he fits that bill very well. He's on a great contract. He's making about $8 million. About that same amount of money for next year, and it's non-guaranteed. So the Cavs have some financial flexibility if they trade for him and say, well, we'd rather have the cap space or we want to keep him because that's a good number. Like that's going to be well below the mid-level exception for next year. Good defensive player. 3-point shot was really good the first month or two of this season, kind of fell off the last couple of weeks while LaMelo Ball's been out. But again, you put him in the Cavs system where he has guys that can set him up where he can get open shots. I think that 3-point percentage goes up. Defensively, he's very underrated. He's a good defender. He's only 6'5", so he's a little bit undersized, but we know the Cavs love their 6'5" forwards. So he would plug in beautifully with that group. But defensively, if you look at the metrics, the Hornets allow 9.5 points per 100 possessions less when he's on the floor. That ranks in the 94th percentile according to Cleaning the Glass. So that's really good. Overall, he makes a 10.7. He has a positive 10.7 point per 100 possession swing rating. So he's just a guy that he doesn't need the ball. He's going to hit open shots. He's going to defend at a high level. He's just your classic role player, and he makes an impact on winning, which the Hornets don't do a lot of, which is why I think he's going to be available. 29 years old, so he's ready to win now. And like I said, with that contract, about $8 million, and then next year you have that option, 8.7 non-guaranteed. I just think that's a guy that on the cheap could be a good role player for you.
So the thing that I do think that the shooting worries me a little bit with Martin. And I think, Greg, the other thing that kind of concerns me about him, because I do think he's a good basketball player. And I do think that he is someone that would probably shoot better in Cleveland than he shot historically in Charlotte, just because of the talent around him. But the availability for him is something that concerns me a little bit too, because you look at him, he's only played, I think, 61 games over the last 3 seasons. Obviously not a lot of games so far this year. He's been available. He's played 26 games. I don't know if the Charlotte Hornets have played 26 games or, if he has missed a game or two, but he's been really available for that team, which is a step in the right direction. But you looked last year, he only played 28 games. The year before that, he only played 7 games. Like, that would be one of my biggest concerns with training for him is he a guy that you can count on to be on the floor?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. This year, he has not missed a game. Charlotte's still at 26 games right now. So he's one of the few Hornets that they've had a lot of injuries. He's one of the few Hornets. I think him and Josh Green are probably the only two that have actually played every game for them. So he's been available this year. The last 2 years, yeah, he's missed a lot of time, but nothing I think that's going to be an injury that's going to be worrisome in the future. I think he's proven that he's healthy this year, and he's not a guy for the Cavs that is going to have to play 30 minutes a night. Like, he might not even be in the rotation to start, especially if the entire team's healthy. But if you're looking for a guy where, like I said, if Dean Wade has to miss time, if Sam Merrill has to miss time, if Max Strus comes back and suffers another ankle injury and you got to plug somebody in, he's a good defensive option for you. And outside of Isaac Okoro, and you don't have a lot of premier defenders on the outside. So I think he's a guy that, is maybe not a lock for a playoff rotation. But if you're the Cavs and you're like, we don't have a lot of trade assets to give up, right, we're not going to go trade for a superstar here. So if we get Cody Martin and be a a solid 3-and-D guy from a sinking ship in Charlotte, I think he would be happy to come to Cleveland.
So one of the guys that I did see on your list for other teams, but not the Cavs, that was instantly one of the ones when I saw, trade candidates for every team to trade for. This guy has always popped into my mind as a fit with the Cavs. He popped into my mind this summer as a fit with the Cavs. He's on a team that I think is very much ready to trade away its good players and not be good. And that'd be Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yes.
So far this year, he's been, I don't know how many teams you listed him for. I know it was more than 3 or 4.
It was a lot.
The Cavs were not one of them. Why did you not see him as a fit there?
So I've done a couple iterations of this. I did one before the season. I did one during the season, and he has been on my Cavs list before. I think the asking price for him is going to be a little bit higher than a Cory Kispert or a Cody Martin. And if there becomes a bidding war for his services, because he's on a good contract, he makes about $14 million. It's easy to trade for, and he's shooting a career high from 3. He's averaging, last I checked, a career high in points per game, right around 11 or 12. I think he's going to have a lot of interest. And what we just saw from Brooklyn, they traded Dennis Schroeder. Brooklyn has been too good this year. They've been too good. Their goal is, we want to get the number 1 overall pick. That's why we gave up those Phoenix Suns picks, so they could get their own draft assets back, because they knew they were going to be bad. It wasn't a bad idea, but they've been too good. They've been in the play-in tournament area. So they traded Schroeder before they were allowed to trade him. They agreed to it. And Dennis Schroeder was one of my 3 targets for the Golden State Warriors. So I had to go in and replace that.
Congratulations to you. That's a really good call.
I'm 1 for 90 so far on my trade target list. So off to a good start here.
You didn't have Thomas Bryant to the Pacers on the draft that you originally filed?
I have 3. I literally have 3 backup centers for the Pacers, and not one of them was Thomas Bryant. So I was like, all right, well, I had the position, but not the player. Finney-Smith makes a ton of sense. I'd love to get him. It's just asking price. I still think Brooklyn could get a late first-round pick for him. I know he's on the last year of his contract. His value is probably not quite as high this year as it would have been last year had they traded him, just because he would have multiple years left on his deal. But what team doesn't want him? You know what I mean? Like the Sacramento Kings, for example, I think are a perfect fit for him as a defensive player. Even the Golden State Warriors, like if they strike out on, chasing a Jimmy Butler or even a LeBron, like I think that's a guy that they turn maybe their sights to. You go up and down the league, what team doesn't want a 29-year-old 3-and-D guy making 42% of his threes? And I just think, in a vacuum, is he the star player that deserves a first-round pick? No. But if you have multiple teams bidding on him and, 6 teams say, well, we'll give you 2 seconds, all it takes is one team to say, well, we'll give you a first this year. One good team that's going to have a pick in the 20s, which the Cavs don't have. So if they could get him, the Cavs have a lot of second-round picks they can trade. I'm sure they would offer a handful of them for him. But, again, what salary are you matching to go out? Because now you're getting a little bit more expensive than the Larry Nances, than the Cory Kisperts, than the Cody Martins. So that's something you got to worry about too.
He was one of the guys that this summer that I thought made a ton of sense for the Cavs to trade for if they wanted to shake things up a little bit. And the way I looked at him was, he didn't shoot the ball all that well in Brooklyn, but look at the guys who've been creating for him. And I am very curious to see what's going to happen to him now that Dennis Schroeder's gone and the Nets are going to, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be in Brooklyn, but my thinking was, okay, well, when he played in Dallas alongside Luka Doncic, he got pretty solid. He was a solid 3-point shooter. If you put him in Cleveland alongside Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, those guys are going to create awesome looks for him. And that was one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, this guy makes a ton of sense. And of course, now he's shooting 45% from 3 on the season. He's been incredible so far this year, which I don't know that anyone saw coming.
No. And now he's got Ben Simmons passing him the ball every night. So, buddy, watch out.
The other guy, Greg, that I was interested to see who on this list was not connected to the Cavs. I don't know that he makes a ton of sense, but he is a quote unquote sexy name as far as the trade market goes. And that's Kyle Kuzma. Was there any consideration for him to be a potential fit in Cleveland, or does that contract just not work?
The contract's not horrible. I think he's right around 20 million, and it's a contract that goes down about $2 million a year. It's not a horrible contract. When he first signed it, and I was like, whoa, $100 million. That's a generous amount for a guy that I've not been a big fan of in his career. He's fine. He's a good scorer. He's improved his passing the last couple of years. I think last year he averaged over 4 assists. It was a career high. He's athletic. You can put him at either forward position. I just think, man, he should have taken that trade to Dallas last year when he shot that down and chose to stay in Washington. And now, well, he might have more options to go to in a trade because his numbers are so bad this year that I think his asking price will come down quite a bit. So maybe there will be more teams that potentially trade for him. I don't like the fit with him in Cleveland. I don't know what role you put him in. I don't think he makes sense as a starting small forward with this group. I think he would project with this team as better as like a 6-man who can score, who can have the ball in his hands. Would he be happy coming off the bench when he's only 29? I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if he was okay with that role. So I would give that maybe 2 seconds of consideration. And at the end of the day, I don't think we would have what the Wizards would want. And I don't think Kuzma would want a bench role. And I just think overall it would probably be a poor fit overall.
Would you give more consideration if you're the Cavs to trading someone from the core for, I don't know, maybe Jimmy Butler or LeBron, or trading role players for Kyle Kuzma?
Oh, man. I've officially made peace with the fact that LeBron is never coming back. I'm okay with that. Look, we had 2 wonderful runs, and happy early birthday, LeBron. You are still, in my eyes, the greatest basketball player of all time, but we're good. We're good. Thank you for everything you've done. We're good over here. Jimmy Butler, I have waited for the tires to fall off the car for years now, ever since he was averaging 40 minutes a game for Tom Thibodeau for the Chicago Bulls. And I just thought, oh boy, that decline is coming. And right now he's playing great the last couple of games because he's got to get that trade value up. So not interested in paying a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler $50 million a year going forward. Good player in a vacuum, could probably help you in the playoffs a lot this year, but not interested in that. I'd rather trade for Kuzma than, take a big gamble on 2 guys in their late 30s making $50 million a year.
Yeah, I don't think that is, I don't think any of those things are going to happen, but I don't think that's the wrong way to look at it. Well, we do need to talk about, Greg, somebody on the Cavs that I don't think is getting appreciated as much as he should be. We're going to do that next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sports book, and for good reason. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. All you got to do, head on over to FanDuel, find something you like. I don't know, maybe there's Thursday Night Football coming up later this week. Maybe you don't like anything until the Cavs take on the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday. I don't know what you're going to be into, but I do know that FanDuel has everything you need all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game, they've got you covered. The latest stats, live play-by-play, so much more, right on the same page where you place your bets. Where's that page? It's the FanDuel Sportsbook. So head on over to FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com to join today. And like I said, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Again, $150 in bonus bets. All you got to do, win that first $5 bet. It's not easy to pick out one $5 winner, right? You can do that and then get $150 in bonus bets. So again, FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up here. Total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do groceries or travel. Paying rent comes now with serious perks. It's completely free to join too. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700 100,000 hotels in the program. The possibilities are endless. Access unique experience that are exclusive to Built members. I personally am somebody, I love using points for travel, and Built makes it so easy to turn rent into rewards. If you're already paying rent, why not make it work for you? So start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. joinbuilt.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, if you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And Greg, Donovan Mitchell is somebody right now that I don't think is getting the love nationally that he deserves. I think a lot of it is because we can be a little bit lazy and we just look at the counting stats and not what actually is happening on the floor. But he's somebody that, as I watched this year, I just see him as a basketball player that continues to get better, that continues to do so many helpful winning type of things for his team. And I really do too have to give him a lot of credit for being somebody that has, despite his stature in the league, despite what he's accomplished in terms of individual accolades, been willing to take a little bit of a step back offensively for the betterment of the team. Those are some of the things that I've seen from Donovan Mitchell. And he's somebody that I think deserves a little bit more praise than what he's been getting.
100% agree. Donovan Mitchell is quickly becoming one of my favorite Cavaliers of all time. Just the fact that this guy could average 30 points a game every night if he wanted to. He's just an unbelievable talent. And he's averaging 23, and the Cavs are winning almost every night. And I think he's perfectly happy with that balance, because a lot of times in his career, he would have had to score 25, 30, 35 for his teams to win. Even his first year in Cleveland, like, he would have had to score a little bit more. But the fact that, for years we've talked about, well, Evan Mobley has to take that next step. Evan Mobley only takes that step forward if Donovan Mitchell takes that step back. And not every superstar in the NBA would be willing to do that. A lot of guys would be like, no, listen, in a couple of years, I'm going to opt out and get my $350 million contract. Like, I ain't taking a step back. Donovan has been the ultimate teammate. He's obviously extremely talented. His efficiency numbers are up as a result, over 40% from three. I mean, he's a guy that you watch the Cavs, and he may not even really catch your eye till the second or third quarter, because there's so many other guys that are getting it going. And a lot of it is because Donovan is so unselfish. It's because he can pass the ball and serve as a point guard and not have to be a ball dominant scorer every single night. And I think it's a great situation for him too. He got his max contract. He's going to start making over $50 million a year next year. He's on a winning team. He has a young core that's only getting better. They're the number one team in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, this is a guy that's never
best team in the NBA.
Yeah,
in terms of record.
Yes, and this is a guy that's never made it out of the second round of the playoffs. Never made it to a conference finals. And I think he's a guy that realizes the sacrifice that needs to be made. And it's one thing to realize it, and it's another thing to do it. And I love the way Donovan Mitchell's played for the Cavs this year. I
do too. And I felt like that he needed a little bit more praise than he's been getting. And I'm a little guilty of that too. I spend a lot of time on this show talking about the role players that are big reasons why the Cavs have been winning games, because they are. Like, Karis LeVert deserves praise. Isaac Okoro deserves praise. Evan Mobley is very easy to talk about. But I do think at times we kind of can lose sight over the true superstar on this roster, and it's Donovan Mitchell. And despite his counting stats being down, which I do think partially is a reflection of the Cavs blowing out so many teams, and he's playing fewer than 32 minutes a night, like, that matters in that conversation too, because his per 36 minutes numbers are right on track with where he's been the rest of his career. But just thought that he deserves a little bit more credit for the Cavs having the best record in the NBA than he's gotten. Greg, thanks so much for doing this. Where can everyone check out your stuff?
Yeah, keep clicking on Bleacher Report, checking out our stuff. Obviously, we've got trade season's going to be heating up. We've got the NBA season officially starts on Christmas for a lot of people. So that's we've got some good Christmas matchups, and obviously the Cavs playing really well is another reason to turn in and check out our stuff on Bleacher Report.
Yes, there he is, Greg Swartz. Thanks so much to him. Thanks so much to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor before you get out of here. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back tomorrow with more Locked On Cavs.